Hello, all you Toffees out there. Welcome back to the Blue Frontier. James here, joined by Shan. Yet again, no Ryan, unfortunately, but we are here to talk about Wolves 1, Everton 1 at Molineux, bringing Everton's unbeaten streak to 8 games, but also 4 draws in our last 5. I did think this little tidbit was interesting. The last time David Moyes won 8 unbeaten matches in his career was in November of 2012, which is about 6 months before he left Everton for Manchester United. So back like he never left, preserving the unbeaten streak in what was a bit of an uneventful match, but I think there's still plenty to talk about, and we will get into all of it. Before we do, just a reminder, rating, review, all that good stuff helps us out. We really appreciate it. Follow us on socials, join our Discord, engage with us. We love to talk to people. We love to talk to Toffees. We love when new people join and get involved in the community and conversation. So please definitely join. And also, if you haven't noticed, we did drop an episode a couple days ago where we take kind of a look at David Moyes' tenure and the numbers up to now, up until preceding this match, obviously, and get into some of the executive stuff. And we did a really fun kind of AMA. We're calling it the Frontier Feedback Loop is what I've dubbed it. Subject to change, potentially. In any case, we'll go to our summary quote of the day. This one comes from our Discord. It's Lee Folger, who said, "There are worse things than a point away from home when you never really get going, but feels like a Cunha-less Wolves on paper certainly looks like a game you'd want to take 3 points from." Over to you, Shan, for score predictions.
Yeah, so James, very optimistic bunch today, as the comment that you talked about, I think, would basically allude to. But we actually did have a few correct today, so I give Harper scored canvas, Sunwave Cat, of course, the infamous Tony Sampson, and then you're probably right. I want to give a quick shout out to Sunwave Cat. This is his 4th correct score prediction, so really great job, Sunwave Cat. Keep the predictions coming in, and yeah, as James said, really join the Discord, a really fun group, and just to get it started, James, I'll send it over to you for Everton lineup.
Yeah, this Everton lineup segment's getting kind of boring because there's just one change every single match, and it's the same change week in, week out. And that is, of course, Abdoulaye Doucouré back from the maternity ward. Doucouré goes straight back in at the 10. Charlie dropping to the bench as a result of that. But good to see Seamus Coleman back on the bench as well, and Yusuf Trimidi kind of lingering, waiting for his chance. Questions around whether he's actually fully fit. But bench is slowly but surely getting a little bit more healthy, and starting a team that I think obviously has gotten results of late. Nothing to feel too concerned about there. And then Wolves, of course, conspicuous absence of certain players that they didn't mention at all or show at all during the broadcast. Sean, walk us through what Vitor Pereira put out on the pitch today.
Yeah, James, it was, I think Sleazy said it best. They basically were showing Cunha more than they would Taylor Swift during a Chiefs game. So it was just, if you didn't have any sense of what was going on, the one thing you knew about the match is that Matheus Cunha was suspended for it. But going into the preview, a little bit of a surprising lineup from Vitor today from Wolves, just from an attacking sense, given that they actually had a lot of players returning from injury. Hwang Hee-chan, of course, the famous Hwang, and we'll get to him later. Just a fun kind of inside joke with him. Of course, Rodrigo Gomez, that's good for them that he's back. Pablo Sarabia, another one, as well as Gonzalo Guedes. But then you kind of really look at, to me, a guy that I've been very focused on, just kind of watching Wolves, is Emmanuel Agbadou, who came back into the side, and I think he's a massive boost for them. You want to talk about how porous they were defensively. He has been a big reason on why that's really changed. And they, stay with their normal back 3 setup. I think Matt Doherty's actually, been underratedly pretty good for them, as well as Totti. And then the wing backs, they have 2 pretty good ones, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Aït-Nouri. And of course, Ryan Aït-Nouri is kind of the guy that you really want to watch for, just because he's a very good progressor of the ball, can pass it, as well as just a pretty good defender. And then to me, what I was really kind of curious to, and we'll get, of course, into our key matchups, is their midfield 2 with João Gomes and Andre. Andre's kind of one where he's incredibly tidy in possession, just a guy that is always putting a professional performance in. And then, of course, João Gomes, I expected to get more forward, be a little bit more risky, especially with this lineup. But then you look at kind of that front 3. John Bellegarde is, I think, a player that was not used very well under Gary O'Neill, but he has a lot of talent, and I think he's somebody that really to watch for, especially under Vitor Pereira, who is kind of, really used him and pretty much kind of put him as a nailed-on starter for their 11. Strand Larson coming back, I thought that was actually a boost for us. He's just kind of a clunky center forward, decent when it comes to getting good service, but outside of that, pretty useless in my opinion. And then Marshall Monetzi, kind of a guy that was playing the number 9 and is playing more of an advanced role, similar to Jake O'Brien in the sense of he's not really playing, I think, his preferred position, just given João Gomez and Andre, but a decent player and of course, one of the many players that they bought in January. So yeah, for us, it was just going into that lineup and seeing it. I thought they'd be a little bit more conservative, and then of course try to kind of take the game more depending on what the game state was with that attacking bench.
Yeah, and announcers and broadcast and media trying to make this out to be some sort of like relegation 6-pointer to try to drum up the drama, but it's a big game for Wolves under the lights at home for them, but they're not fully safe by any means, but they are slightly comfortable. So I just thought that there was a lot of sort of overstated drama in this match that maybe was not necessary, but they have a decent team. They do have a decent side, maybe not as attacking. I am, I guess, a little happy for Matt Doherty to finally be back at Wolves and getting some consistent playing time, because he just did not have the most success in his time at Spurs. But moving on to some of the key matchups, I know it was belabored into the ground, but it's really, really important to just emphasize how big a miss Cunha is for Wolves. Like, he is the only reason they are not firmly in the relegation battle and could be potentially even rock bottom without him. That's how important he's been. So I looked at some of the numbers, and obviously if you've watched him play, you know he's just unbelievably talented. But his influence on Wolves, these are categories in which he both leads Wolves in and is also in the top 10 players in the Premier League. Obviously in goals, he's tied for 7th. Expected assists, he's 5th. Passes into the penalty area, he's tied for 9th. Shot created actions, dribbles, aka take-ons, and fouls drawn. And furthermore, he scored a goal in all of their wins this season. And that, of course, will remain true after today because they did not get the win. So just their talisman, their captain, and without him, you wonder how they're going to really do anything noteworthy going forward.
Yeah, and then I think another matchup, and I kind of alluded to it in the preview, is Beto against Emmanuel Agbadou. I just think Beto's kind of finally meeting a defender that is just as much of a brick house as he is, and you can really just see it in regards to the way he defends and just in terms of how he kind of takes space. Very positionally smart defender. Not the best in terms of passing the ball, which you saw a few times, but to me, I thought if there was kind of a battle to kind of really watch today, it was between them two. And the midfield battle as well is definitely one to watch, just because, of course, Ghana and Decore, you look at the experience versus a young kind of tandem in Andre and João Gomez. And I know we talked about it a little, but in regards to Ramadan, right, just kind of worried a little bit about kind of, we have, of course, the probably the most relied upon position on the field in regards to the midfielders against those two guys. So I expected them to be a little bit slower today. And of course, we kind of saw that at certain points of the game. But James, yeah, getting into the preview, we'll start with the first half. And really, it was just kind of a weird start until about the 11th minute.
Yeah, and this is where I think we got basically almost all of our best attacking opportunities in the span of about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And it's the first chance for either team. Jesper takes a shot from distance that gets deflected. It kind of doesn't even really end up being a shot. It comes wide to Mykolenko, and Mykolenko brings it down, crosses it to Decore, who takes it down well, and wins a corner. And then on that corner, Jared Branthwaite very nearly gets on the end of it, and we win another corner. Branthwaite looked very incredulous after that one, like, wow, that was a really good chance. And then this one, Charlie Adam perhaps in play here with the short corner, played immediately right back to Jack, and he swings it in, and Beto gets a really good chance. Between these 3 shots, I think it was like 0.79 XG or something like that, and we finished with, that was over half of our XG for the entire game, just in those 3 opportunities. So 3 golden opportunities to score. And then in just a few minutes later, Wolves kind of answer. Gomez wins a 50-50 with Ghana. Ghana relentlessly trying to tackle even early on, and Wolves kind of get on the break. Nori doing what he does, carrying the ball forward, takes a shot and gets a corner. This is where Pickford makes that really good sort of point-blank kick save, which was just great reactions, getting low. I don't think he really got the credit he was due for that save from the announcers. They kind of blew it off like it was an easy save. That was impressive.
Yeah, I thought it was impressive. I think what they were doing was just talking about Cunha during that point of the game, so they just weren't even paying attention to what was happening on the pitch. But yeah, it's just kind of an interesting game with how sluggish it started, and then all of a sudden you kind of have that 4-minute window. And that almost was kind of the theme of the match, where it was just so sleepy, right, at certain places. But yeah, I think credit to Pickford, because I think if you like, just look at this game, you kind of forget that moment just because it's sandwiched in between, of course, those great chances, to your point, James. And then, of course, this is one of my favorite moments of the match, just from a humor standpoint. Ryan Aït-Nouri, I think he's had enough of Premier League refereeing, so he wanted to take it in his own hands. He grabs the ball when he kind of thinks he gets fouled, and he really doesn't. I think the ref actually does a really good job here. One of a few moments that he does, because outside of that, it was pretty porous. And then, just after a comically long delay, it was just, and then after that, it was just kind of more just back and forth, but nothing really happened until the 32nd minute.
Yeah, I really like that Aït-Nouri, because I hate when players do that, when they go to ground and they grab the ball trying to force the ref into making a call. And Aït-Nouri, he falls onto his knees and he's staring at these, like, looking up at the ref to see if he's going to get the call. And then he sort of like starts to lean over and he's still looking at the ref, and then he falls and he's still, nothing's been called. And then he just reaches out and grabs it. Usually it's much more of a fluid motion, but I love that. Honestly, how is that not just a yellow for a handball? That should be a straight up yellow for a handball. You flop, you don't get the call. But yeah, that just summarizes modern football in a lot of ways, that play. So I thought that was pretty funny. But we jump ahead, and this is, of course, when Everton take the lead through none other than Jack Harrison. Tark kind of jumping forward to win a header, which goes to Jesper. Jesper looking to cross it really quickly. Slips on the cross. I actually wasn't sure watching it. I've only watched the replay a couple times at this point. Wasn't sure if he was actually trying to send it to Jack or Beto, who's also making a run sort of towards goal into the box. But I think he was trying to give it to Jack, because Jack's in a lot of space. He's open sort of at the edge of the box, and he gets it and he shoots it. And look, when you've gone as long without scoring as Jack Harrison has, sometimes you just need a play like this, and it is a ruthless deflection, making things very difficult for Jose Sa in net. I think it goes through both defenders' legs, maybe does a little pinball action in there, and goes into the side netting. Like, Sa can't do anything about that, but happy for Jack to finally get on the score sheet.
Yeah, I think for me, another moment of just pure comedy with Jesper. I don't know what he was trying to do. I think, to your point, James, the intent was, but in a game where we were kind of crying out for quality and missing chances or whatnot, Jesper miskicking it, and of course it going perfectly to Jack, was kind of I would say, a bit of irony in this game. But yeah, to your point, super happy for Jack. I mean, when you talk about, I think we've been pretty consistent on the pod. Under Moyes, he's really kind of taken that starting role after the Njai injury, and it's just really good to see him. Of course, I understand it's a deflected goal, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So good for Jack on that moment. And I think we feel pretty good, especially with Wolves, really feeling the pressure at home.
Yeah, but Wolves responded well, to their credit. I mean, they bounced right back, and just a couple minutes later, they really seized the momentum. Like, Everton did not take the opportunity to build on this sort of maybe fortuitous goal, let's put it that way. And Wolves were coming right back at us almost immediately. Bellegarde had a curling shot just a few minutes later. After receiving a good ball from Gomez, it goes just wide. Pickford kind of had it covered, I'm pretty sure. But then it's Molineux who equalizes, and this is a good little break and a good little move from Wolves. I have to kind of tip my cap to them. It's Toti sending it wide down the line to Aït-Nouri. Again, Aït-Nouri involved in so much of what Wolves did very well, especially in the first half. And it's the pass inside to Bellegarde, slides it into Molineux. I've watched this back a few times. Curious your thoughts on the analysis. I know there were a lot of people saying, it's poor defending, it's all that. I watched it. Branthwaite kind of kicks at it on the pass to Molineux, and it looks kind of awkward in doing so. But watching the play unfold, Branthwaite's trying to mark Sven Larsson. Mykolenko is really the only man, maybe one of the midfielders you could argue should be back, but Mykolenko is not really in a position to like come all the way inside and mark Molineux. And Molineux makes a pretty intelligent run kind of in front of the defender to get it and put it in the back of the net. But it sucks to let an equalizer in when you take the lead in that way.
Yeah, and I think this was a moment where you probably put it more on our midfield looking back, just because of the acres of space that they got. And I think for anybody that really watches Wolves, this is a lot of what they do, just some really creative passing sequences. They have some guys that can move it. I think that was just, unfortunately, a moment where we gave them too much space. And to your point, James, I don't blame Jared on this. If anybody I kind of blame, it's just Tark, just given the ability for JB to kind of have to cover all this space and then make a decision. And he was kind of a little bit in no man's land, just given that there were kind of two guys open. And so, yeah, and it's just a clinical pass, and it's a really good finish, right? Because you look at Molineux's shot, right? It's not like an error on Pickford. It's just he takes it really quickly. It's just kind of one of those goals that could have been defended better, sure, from a structure standpoint. But similar to kind of our goals that we scored, right? There's a little bit of luck involved, and I think it's a pretty deserved 1-1, all things considered.
Yeah, I think so. And I also really like this comment from TJ Bureau Thomas from the Discord. When you need a vacation after a nice trip? This was Everton going back to the office on that Monday. Yeah. And it did feel that way. I mean, a little bit lethargic at times. The midfield, I think, particularly James Garner, looked a little confused on where he was supposed to be. Ghana was maybe being a little overambitious and trying to get forward too much, aggressive in the tackle, and I think that left us a little bit exposed, and Wolves did this well of getting the ball wide and finding the space to the guys kind of in the half space cutting inside.
Yeah, and I think for us, and it was kind of the common theme of the day, I don't think we were able to deliver that final ball, right? There were a few moments where we got into good positions, but unfortunately we just couldn't either get it to Beto or just kind of make that pass, right? That put us in a position where we could get a better shot.
Yeah, and early on I was encouraged because we were looking for sort of that through ball in behind to Beto. There were a couple times where he made a good run and the pass was a little bit off, but you could see that he was getting the right position and had the run there. And then we just completely really went away from that. We were still going long quite a bit, but not with the same intent, not the same directness, and mostly in the air, just kind of launching it. It felt very reminiscent of games under Sean Dyche, I think, in some ways. But nevertheless, we get to the half, and then we get into the second half, and substitution of the goal scorer at halftime by Vitor Pereira, allegedly due to injury, but I thought that was interesting. And Sarabia coming on, as you mentioned, Sean coming back from injury, and he was almost immediately very impactful.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very solid player. They signed him for pretty cheap money. Of course, he's kind of an older guy, but definitely somebody when you consider a bench option, definitely for a team that's kind of looking for a goal, a good sub by Vitor. So yeah, you look at kind of the free kick that they won. Sarabia takes it, and I was just kind of very nervous when I saw this live because it looked like it was going in. And then just this really another just funny moment in this very sleepy game. Andre gets a yellow for nearly going forehead to forehead with Stuart Attwell. I'm sure Paulo Fonseca was watching that, just wondering, why can't I get, a little bit of a lesser punishment? But yeah, it was like a very much a stare down, and I was just kind of wondering what was happening. But this is once again one of the more funny moments of the match. 55th minute. We actually have a really good sequence of play leading up to this. So I think, pretty much all of our attackers getting involved. And of course, Ghana just decides that, we've had enough. We need to kind of go back to the basics. And he shoots it over the goal. As Ryan said in the Discord, he didn't hit a fan, so it wasn't that far away per usual. But yeah, just kind of another moment to kind of reel us back in that we're still kind of who we are.
Yeah, and just I do want to say Attwell, not his best day. I mean, there was rampant inconsistent calls all over the place. In some ways, I actually don't blame Andre for getting in his face. I don't think Wolves were really getting ripped off or anything like that, but on that particular call, he grabs his shirt and he just goes up in his face and almost touched his forehead. I mean, they were less than 4 inches apart. You don't really see players do that. It was a very bold move from him, and honestly, it might be a little bit lucky to get away with just a yellow there. But yeah, the Ghana obligatory every match. He's got to have one, sailing it. And I just like this comment from Jonesy right around the 60th minute of the match in the Discord, saying that all 11 players look like they've been fasting as opposed to just Doucouré and Ghana.
That was the funniest comment today for sure. I very much laughed pretty hard when I saw that because, yeah, to Jonesy's point, I mean, we just looked slow. We looked lethargic. You can blame whoever you want. You can blame the warm weather camp, but it's just one of those days where it's just we kind of had the off switch, and we didn't really. I wouldn't say we wanted to lose it, but I don't think we were kind of showing the crazy intent we have the last few weeks or games, right, to show that we wanted to win it.
Yeah, and I think Moyes had pretty much arrived at the same conclusion because in the 60-30 he makes the double substitution and does so interestingly. I mean, this is a very common sub. We've seen the sub made a number of times under Moyes as of late. It's Charlie coming on and Tim for Doucouré and Jesper. In doing so, though, he changes the shape quite a bit. He elects to put Charlie kind of on the left a little bit. He puts Tim sitting deeper next to next to Ghana, and then pushes Garner up at least at first, a little bit higher and moves Jack over to the right. But even in the ensuing 40 minutes or so, those players kind of switched around quite a bit. It almost seemed like we got a little bit more fluid, experimental in where players were popping up, or they were just given license to induce or add a little more chaos to the match.
Yeah, this is like one of those matches where it's like, remember when the player comes on with a note and it's just like the note like gets handed out and it's like, wait, where should I be? Right? Because it was a little bit confusing. And I was think a little bit curious on the Jesper sub, because I don't think he was looking bad by any means. And I thought he was one of our kind of better players on the day. And so, of course, given Tim coming on, a bit worrisome in regards to kind of some of the recklessness, but at the end of the day, I think it is a bit of a statement of intent from Moyes to try to do something, right? Putting on Charlie and Tim, because we're not putting them on for defensive shape, that's for sure, right? And so, but then to your point, James, we kind of see Wolves just start to break out after these subs. Strand Larsen gets a shot from a really tough angle. And then Pickford actually makes a really good save, not only stopping it, but kind of getting it outside of the center of the goal, right? So, because there was another player there. But then I have to give Charlie an incredible amount of credit here, because he basically kind of has this lung-busting run for about 70 yards, gets away from that man in midfield. So he's pretty much kind of really front and center, and he's bursting forward on the counter, and then he lays it off to Beto, who, to his kind of, I think if there's anything he might have been able to do differently, and it's tough in hindsight, it's he opened his hips up so much that Jose Sa kind of knew what he was trying to do. It's a good shot. It's a good save. And it's just kind of a situation where, it's kind of back and forth. And I joked in the Discord, I don't think Charlie's going to get Beto any Christmas gifts, just given the amount of times that I feel like, because there was actually, if you look at the replay, Beto could have kind of gave it back to Charlie to potentially kind of have that finish. But just a tough one. And of course, for Beto, few and far between today, but just kind of another day where he doesn't hit it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one that really, he has the one sort of on the set piece in the first half. I agree. Once you start to open up your hips, I do like that he tries to take it one time. I actually like that a lot, to try to catch the keeper off guard. But by opening up your hips, it becomes all that more predictable. So even though you're taking it one time, he kind of knows what you're going to attempt to do. Sa does really well. I mean, he's a good keeper. He hasn't had the best season, but he does super well to get low. It's placed well, keeping it low. If anything, I'm left-footed, so I'm putting myself in that position. I would let it just run onto my left foot and try to one-time it, but I don't blame Beto for trying to put it on his strong foot and sort of curl it back around Sa. But Sa also, again, he closes down really well, so I think Beto almost has to. I don't think he can take a touch or anything like that and try to settle it. So it's a bang-bang play. It happens. Not the end of the world, but sure would have been nice to score there. And then Wolves go with another sub in response just a few minutes later. It's Hwang
on a minute. Yeah.
For Strand Larsen. Interesting attacking sub for them. So both teams looking to go for it just based on the substitutions. It's all to play for. I think either team could have easily got one. That one was interesting. I also thought it was interesting in the 76th we see a long throw from Everton, from James Garner. We end up winning a corner from it, but we haven't really seen much of the long throw. I don't know that, Garner's long throw wasn't that great. I don't think it's his strong suit, but I do like that we're trying to utilize that. Just put it in the mixer and hope something good happens.
Yeah, I think at this point, right, you're just trying to try different things, and I've seen much worse attempts than Garner's long throw, so I can appreciate him for trying it. And I think on a team like Wolves, right, there were a few moments in the match where they were a bit suspect defensively and trying to clear the ball. So it's not a bad strategy, in those moments, even though we might not have the personnel like a Brentford does. But credit to them for at least trying, even on a day where, we just felt like we were running out of ideas.
Yeah, I think we were, and at that point, you just see what you can make happen. Worth honorable mention for Tim's what could have been one of the clearest red cards I've ever seen. Goes in for a really reckless challenge. Fortunately, doesn't make much contact, but he does get a yellow for even attempting to be that rash with it. And Tim, I don't know if we'll talk about him later, but just looked a little bit lost, a little undisciplined, a little irresponsible. And this was, I think, a perfect encapsulation of his day. Just a little maybe over-enthusiastic in some ways, which is kind of how he is as a player. I mean, there was the other play later on where he tries to take off on the dribble into like 3 Wolves defenders and just goes like 15 yards and loses it. Not the best, but we don't have a lot of depth. So what are you going to do?
I will say, though, from Tim, the one thing I will give him credit for today is he actually had some good foul timings today. So I think he actually was pretty smart. Outside of course, even that, the timing of it to stop the break was good. It's just the execution was horrific. But yeah, to your point, James, it's just, we are putting him in positions. I'm glad he's getting some playing time, but he needs to learn because he actually does a good job in many cases of dribbling past, and getting out of trouble, but then he puts himself right back into trouble. And so I think that's for one thing when we look at the rest of the season, because he's probably going to get minutes due to the health of our midfield. Those are things that we want to see him improve upon. But going forward, there was, you want to talk about just a horrific kind of referee moment for Wolves, and I would be incensed if I was them. In the 83rd minute, it looks like Guedes gets pushed like crazily by I don't know who it was. And I was shocked that they didn't call that, leading us to winning the ball high. Charlie does incredibly well here, as well as Jake O'Brien, to kind of have the calmness, giving it to Charlie, and just kind of has this nice cutback, and it ends up being a shot right at Jose Sa, but I think a good moment for us. And I said in the Discord, I'm almost glad we didn't score, because I am almost 100% confident that would have been pulled back with VAR, because that was, I do not know how he did not call that as a foul, because it truly, Guedes went by flying. Like,
I mean,
he
sold it for sure, but also you had the like arms extended and everything. I mean, it was a shove. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And Attwell chose his spots on when to let things go and not today, but that one was one. I was like, wait, he's letting us play on in that position? Like a shove maybe in our defensive third to win the ball back. Okay, when it gives us a really good chance to score, okay, well, I'll take it, but a bit bizarre. But that was really kind of the last of the major action. I mean, Charlie got the booking for delay of game, which he seemed kind of shocked by. Sarabia had a shot in the 88th minute that was not even close, and then we do the obligatory stoppage time sub to buy some time. Ashley Young on for James Garner, but neither team really had much of a threat the rest of the way, and only 3 minutes of stoppage time, so it ends 1-1. I don't know, Sean, your thoughts on at the final whistle. Were you concerned? Were you frustrated?
I think I was a little bit disappointed, but I definitely was not frustrated by any means, because it wasn't like a game where I was just like, I think the Brentford match, you have more frustration, right? Given, the amount of chances we had, and also giving up a really horrible, just unfortunate goal, right? But those things happen. And so, yeah, like I was a little bit disappointed in the result, but I think, for us, we're at a position where we're not, in kind of the doom state that we've been in the last few years, right? And I think to continue the kind of just, streak that we have, I think is a credit to the team, because, you look at a day where we just don't have it and we still could pull out a result on the road in a tough environment, right? Because Wolves are really, this is a game that they really want. And so for us, I think it might not be the most exciting point, but it is definitely a valuable point, all things considered.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I mean, we go into this run, we're on 8-match unbeaten run, and I think expectations have maybe gotten a little carried away. This is still the same squad that was languishing near in a true relegation battle for much of the season until Moyes came in, tweaked a few things, and got us some very good results. And furthermore, actually more injured than the team that Sean Dyche had in a lot of ways. And so to go away, period, anywhere in the Premier League and get a point, to score a goal in a bit of a fluky way when so many times in recent years we just have not got the rub of the green in any way, shape, or form. Got a bit of a lucky goal, maybe some poor defending on our goal, but so be it. Take away points all day, win at home, and you're totally comfortable. The Cunha thing, I think, is the big thing. They're missing their best player. I think that's what set expectations so high. But I saw people, even at 0-0 in the first half, like, this is terrible to watch. This is awful. I'm like, guys, have you not been? We have been in way worse straits than this. But I think, of course, Moyes, to his credit, setting expectations higher. We should want to win every game. But I have a hard time getting too mad about a 1-1 draw at Molineux.
Well, a few things, James. I think the standards have increased within the fan base, right? So, of course, they even just like when Beto misses a chance, it's like I just feel like sometimes he's kind of now just public enemy number A or letter A. But I think also, too, it kind of highlighted, of course, Cunha being missed for Wolves, but NJ being missed for us, right? And just needing that creative player, right, to kind of break down a defense. And we just didn't really have that today. Of course, we saw that when Charlie came in, right? But, outside of that, I think we were kind of missing also that boost. And I think these are the type of games where we really miss him, and I can't wait for him to be back and hope that he comes back, fully healthy and we kind of rock and roll from there. But then going into kind of some of the stats, you look at it, James, our expected goals, versus theirs, 1.3 to 0.6. Of course, once again, good on the open play piece. We beat them at 0.54 to 0.39. XGs from set plays, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially the 11th minute, right, and 0.78 to 0.21. Non-penalty XG, of course, 1.32. That will stay the same. But the XG on target for them, they actually nail us out at 1.03 to 0.96.
So just slightly better finishing or shot taking from Wolves today. But overall, again, look, we didn't get that second goal, but we are still creating chances from open play. We're now also creating chances from set plays, which it's easy to forget. We were not doing almost at all against under Shan, at least this season. So the underlying numbers reflect a halfway decent performance. And I also think you have to honestly give Wolves a little bit of credit because they're missing their best player, but they had some guys step up in a big way today.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to it. Two guys that really stepped up. Well, guy that I've been kind of raving about is Emmanuel Agbadou. 10 clearances, 1 block shot. I think he really won the battle today with Beto. I know a lot of folks are saying Beto had a horrible game, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's more of a credit to him versus just kind of Beto being lethargic, although there were certain moments he could have definitely been better. But I want to say the player today, and he won actually Premier League Player of the Match, the award today, was Andre. This stat is insane to me, and you kind of look at it from like a few of the balls that he had, and I know we didn't really talk about him specifically, but 8 for 8 in long balls, 97.3% pass accuracy, and that's with 74 passes, of course, 1 key pass. And all those, yeah, like I said, and there were a few moments, and you saw it on the pitch, his kind of magic with the ball, especially diagonally on a few of those. And he was very tidy with the ball. And so, yeah, I think he also caused us a lot of issues because he felt like he was everywhere, where a midfield just kind of felt like it was lethargic. But, kind of two of their performers and two guys that they added both in the summer and the winter, respectively.
I'll add one more name to that list. We talked about him, mentioned him because he was involved in a lot of their good attacking play, and that's Bellegarde. I thought he was
he was very good.
Really, really dangerous. That's a tough matchup for Jake O'Brien, someone who's so dynamic on the ball. He created 3 chances for them today, and obviously got the assist for the goal. So they had guys step up in lieu of Cunha, and they did so enough to get a draw. And I think it's probably a fair result on the balance of play when you look at things. But I do think Everton had some good performances too. Not too many, because I think as a team, disappointing in some respects. But I got to start with my man Ghana. He must have heard that on our last episode I said he's my favorite current Everton player, and that must have really motivated him. And during Ramadan, no less, this guy puts up 7 for 8 in tackles, 12 for 18 in duels overall, tied for the team lead in touches, and had the highest completion rate of pass completion rate of any player. 3 for 3 in long balls. He did have 4 fouls, but he also drew a couple. And this comment from Sleazy Toffee I thought was just perfect for Ghana. He said, Ghana looks sad when he possesses the ball because he knows he can't tackle anyone until he loses it. Just like that internal monologue of Ghana, I can picture that very easily.
My also favorite part about Ghana is he instantly goes from player to agent right after the game, because he's always just talking to the other players. Of course, he played with Pablo Sarabia, and it was just kind of funny to see. He is, the guy never sleeps, right? He's just loving life right now. He doesn't have to worry about a relegation battle. He's enjoying Ramadan, and like to your point, James, he's just kind of putting these performances up now for fun. And it's a privilege to have him on our team. For me, it was kind of tough. I did get in the dock first, but I didn't want to put Jack just because I thought you were going to do Jack, James, but I actually chose Charlie. I understand he had a short time on the pitch, but I just thought he was so impactful. 2 shots, 1 shot on target, 1 key pass, 1 interception, 80% pass accuracy, and all in 19 touches to make this amount of impact. So I think for me, in a game where we just kind of needed something to be excited about, he gave us that. Of course, we couldn't get the second goal, but I think he did everything in his power to get us there. So yeah, I think for us, just kind of just a tough draw, but at the end of the day, of course, we'll take it. But going into the listener comments, we had some good ones today. I think this one kind of is a good one by Mike Wombat Combat. 8 games unbeaten, 16 points above the relegation spots. It's telling that a draw like this is now disappointing because we expect better, not because we desperately needed to survive, elevating our standards.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then we had Blanco Nino, also from X Twitter. Wanted to say should have won, but have to switch to could have won. Defense looked shaky half the time, in midfield, upper passing, position less accurate than we have had lately. 1 point is good, but a wasted opportunity, I think. At least we didn't get whanged in stoppage. Regroup for West Ham. I think that's exactly right.
Such a good comment. And then, of course, I know we just talked about it, but credit to Lee Folger for kind of giving the thought starter. Also, wow, we miss Njai, don't we? And don't we miss him? Absolutely.
We really do, but to your point, Sean, you mentioned it just a minute ago. I didn't choose Jack Harrison as my man of the match. He, of course, scored the goal. Outside of that, he didn't have a ton of influence. He was 3 for 7 in crosses, 10 for 15 in passes, and I think he still looks much more comfortable on that left-hand side. And what I think he was doing particularly well today is just getting into space to receive the ball and get us into the final third in attack. I saw some people kind of talking about the frustration at the style of play today, given the opponent and the relative league positions, I guess, but this is still an Everton team that's set up not to possess the ball. And Wolves, on the other hand, actually they are okay being on the ball. They're pretty comfortable in doing so. So I think both managers sort of played to the strengths of their team, and we're never going to, unless it's against lower league opposition or something, really look to dominate the ball unless the other team forces us to do it. So I'm not too frustrated. I think Jack also actually 4 for 6 in ground duels. Maybe I should have picked Jack. Jack had a good game today. I'm being a little mean to Jack. I'm still going to go with Ghana, but Jack is certainly an honorable mention. Probably should have been the third if a certain other one of our co-hosts was here.
Yeah, I can promise you that Ryan would have chose Tim. So and then going into the last comment by Not Latrell, Spree 4-3 at Blue Sky Social. Despite some decent counterattacking and strong games from Harrison and Alcaraz, pretty uninspired effort overall that left me happy to get a point and move on. Yeah, and I think, the sobering reality, once you kind of take a moment to kind of get away from that performance, if somebody took a nap during that performance, I wouldn't have blamed them. But yeah, I think it's just kind of one of those where, of course, it's tough when you think of the amount of draws we're starting to compile, so you kind of get away from some of those wins. But at the end of the day, we're still trending upwards, and we're still on a very good run.
Yeah, and this puts us above, at least for the time being, Man U and West Ham in the table on goal difference. So kind of hard to be too upset with that. And I think also the stark reality is we are comfortably safe at this point, knock on wood, barring the bottom completely falling out. So these sorts of results against teams in and around us in the table are just not going to be that exciting unless we win. So I think that's just kind of how we have to be until the end of the season. There's now 10 games left, and I'm okay with analyzing these performances, but we can't expect a lot to radically change, and we can't let our expectations get too carried away here.
Yeah, and of course, as we've talked about, and I think sometimes it gets forgotten, we have a very thin squad right now, right? So we're asking a ton from a lot of players, and I think they've done a pretty good job of really getting us through this kind of very quick stretch of games, and I think there are going to be some games, unfortunately, like this where we're asking a lot, and we're going to have some games where we're a bit lethargic, right? And so of course, as we've talked about before with Beto, right, we don't expect his conversion percentage to be in the upper 40s, right? It's naturally going to regress to the mean. I don't think it's going to be at 11% because I think he's a good one-on-one finisher, but he's just having a bit of a tough time right now, right? But he's still taking some good chances, and so of course, going into our new segment in regards to looking forward for our next opponent. And this should be a fun one for David Moyes. I'm sure he's looking forward to this one. It's at home to West Ham. And West Ham, you want to talk about kind of points, 16th in X points this season, 16th in X points last season. However, they kind of overperformed by 10.72 points last season. And I believe they overperformed so far by about 3. So a team that definitely is kind of taking advantage of their chances. You look at kind of West Ham also replacing their manager, famously with Graham Potter, of course, a target for us that many were disappointed that we didn't get. And their form's been mixed, 3 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. But, kind of looking at the West Ham social circles, it seems like they're pretty happy with what Graham Potter's done relative to Julian Lopetegui. Of course, for them, unfortunate for us, Jared Bowen is back, and he is going to be a absolute nuisance when he comes to Goodison. He's just a very, very good player, and probably their next player that is probably going to get sold for massive money. 7 goals, 4 assists, but his impact is far greater than that. Kind of one of the only players that really has true kind of, top-end pace. And then kind of partnered with, of course, Mohamed Kudus, famous Everton target. Those guys are going to be a handful for us at Goodison. But I will say some positives to look at. Their midfield, I think, is arguably one of the slowest in the league. Of course, you have Thomas Souček, and then depending on who they decide to pair him, whether it be Edson Alvarez, Guido Rodriguez, and of course James Ward-Prowse, the recalled from Nottingham Forest. There's not much pace there. So when it comes to like our midfield kind of being, run over, I don't expect that to happen. However, their defense is actually pretty decent. Their wingbacks, I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka was a good bit of business for them at $15 million. I think he's a very, very, very good kind of wingback. And then Emerson, of course, he's a little bit older, but I think just very solid. And then, Graham Potter's started to reintroduce Jean-Claire Todibo. That's the big money center back that they've paid for in the winter, the summer. And he has started to really kind of show his talents. Of course, Max Kilman, they spent big money on, and he's been kind of a mainstay there. I'm hoping they play Mavropanos because I think he's a massive weak point for them. And of course, Alfonso Areola is just a solid keeper. And they might end up getting Nicholas Fulkerg back for that game. But yeah, kind of our last, I would say, game out of the stretch where we feel pretty good about, getting either a draw or a win, and it would be really, really nice to get, kind of cap this off with a win going into the international break.
Yeah, going into the international break and the absolutely brutal slate of April games that we have coming up. I do think it's going to be interesting. Moyes returning or playing against his former club. He's going to be, I'm sure, have a keen eye looking out for, do I really want to sign Thomas Souček? Do I really want to sign Aaron Cresswell? Do I really want to sign Soufal? All these guys. But yeah, to your point, Sean, I mean, they've done some decent business. I don't think they're having the best season, but Potter hasn't really had an opportunity. I mean, he's a significant departure from sort of the model that they've had and the style of play that they've had. So he's had to make some concessions in terms of what he wants to do. I do think it's a favorable matchup for us because, of course, Potter's going to want them to get on the ball quite a bit, and they're midfield is overall pretty slow, so I think there's opportunities to exploit the quick transition that we didn't really get the opportunity to do very much today. So I think as a matchup, it's actually maybe a little bit better for us than Wolves, one could argue, but we'll have to see how it all plays out. And then of course we have a nice little break, so to gear up for what will be hopefully a not too terrible month of matches and pods for us, but that remains to be seen. I think we can probably leave it there for this one. It's a little bit shorter than normal, but it's also not the most exciting game today. Any final thoughts before we send the listeners off?
Yeah, just of course, tough day today, but still so much excitement for the future. Of course, we look at, I think we're going to have a good day against West Ham. I just have a good feeling about that one. And I'm really excited to get some guys back in April. Of course, we've talked about Armando Broja could potentially be featuring back in April. I imagine they'll probably let Chermiti back in April just because I'm sure they just want to give players as much time from long recoveries. And then hopefully we start to get a little bit more news on Dom, of course, Iliman Ndiaye and whatnot. And yeah, I think and those things will help us, right, in regards to this stretch. But I'm also kind of excited for that stretch because I kind of want to see how we match up, under Moyes against some of those teams, because I do think we can kind of grind out some results.
I think we definitely can. And in addition to the on-the-pitch stuff, the day after we dropped that episode on the sort of touching on the executive news, the club, of course, puts out an official announcement, and there's plenty more to discuss on that front. So even over the international break, I imagine we'll have some fun stuff to talk about on the pod. So I'm also looking forward to that as well. But I think that's probably going to do it for us today on this episode of The Blue Frontier. Thanks, everyone, again, very much for tuning in. We appreciate it and appreciate your support. If you enjoy the show, help us out a little bit. Leave us a rating and review. Join our Discord. Follow us on socials. All of those links are in the description of this episode. Check it out. Otherwise, we'll be with you next time. Until then, up the toffees.